Go ahead, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you, Kelly. All right, welcome everybody. And at this time, we need approval of the agenda that's set before us.
I'll move, Sheridan.
We have a mover. Do we have a seconder?
I'll second. Oh, okay. Either one.
Ready for the question? Ready for the question?
Yep.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Conflict of interest, if any. I'll take that as a no. Now let's move on to disclosure. Our discussion on aquatic invasive species with Holly, Catherine, and Krista. Thank you for coming and doing this presentation for us.
Thank you for having us. So I think it'd be prudent to do introductions first, if that's all right.
Yes.
So my name is Holly Stewart. I'm the Assistant Deputy Minister of Outdoor Pursuits and Regional Operations with the New Brunswick Department of Natural Resources. And I'm joined today by Krista. And Krista, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah, so I'm Krista DeBoover. I'm a fisheries biologist here in Fredericton at DNR. And I'm going to give you a little talk on what the department does with invasive species.
Thanks, Krista.
Okay, thank you very much.
Perhaps, Mr. Chair, if I may, would you like to do a quick introduction so that they know who they're speaking
I guess
to?
so. All right. So I've got everybody names up here. I don't know who else here or not, but anyways, I'm Dale Morey and Mayor Tracy, and I'm chairing the meeting here today. I'm the vice chair. So anyways, myself, was Guan, and Kevin is not with us today, I take it, on there. Sheridan McEnany.
Yep, I'm Sheridan Mawhinney. I'm the Deputy Mayor of the town of Oromocto.
Okay. Paul Menya.
I'm Paul Menya, Ward 2 Councillor for Arcadia.
All right. Greg Erickson. Susan Jonah.
Hi, I'm Greg Erickson.
Oh.
I'm a councillor for the city of Fredericton.
And Susan Jonah.
Yeah, hi, I'm Susan Jonah. I'm the deputy mayor of Hanwell. And years and years before you guys were there, I worked for 27 years for forest management upstairs from you.
Hey. Victoria Green. John Smith.
Hi, everyone. I'm John Smith. I'm the CEO of the Capital Region Service Commission, and thank you for being here.
Amanda Foy.
See, Amanda.
Amanda's away, Mr. Chair. She's actually somewhere very warm and nice today.
Sounds good. And Kelly Shaw, staff.
Hello, I'm here.
Hey. And I did see a guy there from Arcadia.
Yeah, Clinton Sharp. I'm Mayor of Arcadia.
I don't know if there's anybody else on. If I are, would you introduce
Yeah,
yourself?
it's Bobby Hart. I'm the Deputy Mayor, Fredericton Junction.
Hey, Bobby.
And I believe Don Ferguson. Yeah.
Don Ferguson, I'm the supervisor of Sunbury York South.
Okay.
Marty Forsyth, I'm the chair of the Capital Region District.
All right. Anybody else? If not, then we'll let you carry on, Krista.
All right, well, thank you for that. And thanks for the invite here. Okay, let me try to figure this out. I'm gonna share my screen. Maybe.
You're good, Krista.
You can see that? Okay. All right. All right, okay, yes, again, so I'm Krista DeBoover, fisheries biologist. I've been with the department for about 25 years now. My main role is with the fish stocking program and other fisheries things, but I do dabble in aquatic invasive species, or AIS, when I can. And what I'm going to share this afternoon is what DNR's involvement and activities are in the management of AIS. and maybe a few other things. So before I get started, though, I just thought I'd do a little bit of background because just I'm not sure who's totally familiar with AIS and if you've seen the New Brunswick Invasive Species Council's presentation in the fall. So AIS are non-native species that have been introduced, and usually, but not always, by man. They cause havoc on the ecosystem, the economy, and our quality of life. They are the second largest global threat to biodiversity after habitat loss. They're very difficult to control or eradicate once they are established. And they are unfortunately increasing in numbers into New Brunswick and even just spreading throughout the province. So awareness and education is especially important right now more than ever. And because they are so difficult to control or eradicate, preventative actions are most effective. Further, AIS threaten our native species by altering their habitat, competing with them for food and space, preying on them, spreading diseases, and possibly even through genetic impacts if the AIS are closely related to our native species and they can reproduce. So if that's not concerning enough, there's other impacts that may affect you and your municipalities more directly. So they are a threat to the economy and the infrastructure. They can clog pipes, intakes, filtration systems. They obstruct stormwater and drainage systems. They foul or obstruct docks and launches. And all of this raises maintenance cost, of course, and diverts it away from funds from other priorities. They also reduce property values, and they also threaten recreation, tourism, and human health. The thick plant mats restrict swimming, paddling, boating access, and some can even create toxic blooms. And then the zebra mussels' sharp shells can create hazards on the beaches and shorelines, and then this in turn affects tourism. So to take effective preventative action, it's useful to know the possible pathway invasion because there can be different strategies or messaging that you would want to put out there. So some of them are intentional introductions, and those would be like from people wanting to start a new fishery or a bait source. And then it would be those average citizens who think they're doing the right humane thing by releasing their aquarium or their garden pond pets that they no longer want, or even cultural releases. And so this would be best addressed through don't let it loose messaging and education. And then there are the unintentional introductions or transfers, and these are really the result of recreationists, any of us who live and work and play and are near the water. And it's a result of those AIS hitchhikers that, unbeknownst to us, are in our live wells, our motors, our ballast tanks, on the paddle boards, whatnot. And it's also from dumping, say, contaminated bait or even cleaning your aquariums. And a good example of that, I'm not sure if any of you are aware of, a couple of years ago, there were zebra mussels that were found in mossballs, which were a little plant. It's kind of just a little round ball, a plant that people would buy for their aquariums, but people didn't realize that there were zebra mussels on those. So, and also, I guess, firefighting and construction equipment. And these are all best addressed through clean, drain, dry messaging. So even though New Brunswick doesn't have a large population, we still have a high risk of AIS invasions. And that's because we are home to some excellent fishing opportunities. There's people come from all over the world to fish some of our rivers. And there also seems to be an increase in number of tournament angling and people who travel repeatedly from jurisdictions and watersheds from Ontario, Nova Scotia, Maine, and even further away. And it only takes one of those boats to have an AIS and start something. Also, we share waters with Quebec and Maine, and these are potential points of entry for invasive species. And examples of that are the muskie and the now zebra mussels. Those have all come from Quebec. So, and I also like to point out that sorry, somebody, oh, okay, thought I heard something. So yeah, if you have questions, just jump in, stop me. I can't see the screen, so maybe just holler at me. I just wanted to point out that AIS is not just a result of fishing tournaments And in fact, many of our anglers help promote the clean, drain, dry messaging because they don't want the waters that they fish in the fishery to deteriorate. So many New Brunswickers enjoy outdoor pursuits and like to be on the water, and that includes swimming, canoe runs, tubing, whatever. And because these waters are so accessible and we can move freely all over the province from one water body to another to enjoy these activities. So anyway, that's enough for a background. So I'm going to get into the roles and any existing legislations that pertains to AIS. But before I get into DNR's role, I just kind of wanted to start with the federal government, more specifically the Department of Fisheries and Oceans. So in the Maritime Provinces, constitutional authority for AIS lies with the federal government, and they generally take a lead role. Now, I'll point this out as well, that because I'm going to come back to this a little bit later, but the Western provinces also have constitutional authority, and they also take the lead, whereas the federal government just plays a support role out there. So under the Department of Fisheries and Oceans Fisheries Act, there are a couple of regulations that speak to AIS. And one of those is the Fishery General Regulations, where it is illegal to release live fish into fish habitat, which I'll bring up again later. And then there is the more recent Aquatic Invasive Species Regulation, where it is prohibited to import, possess, transport, and/or release certain species unless authorized. Now, this regulation has a list of species that cannot be imported, possessed, transported, and/or released. Unfortunately, there's only 5 of those species that pertain to New Brunswick and most other jurisdictions. 4 of these are the Asian carp species, which are prohibited for all activities. And then there are the zebra mussels, which are only currently prohibited for importation into Canada. They are prohibited to all activities, but only in the Western provinces. And unfortunately, it's only zebra mussels. It's not the similar quagga mussels or the newest North American arrival, the golden mussel. So if you look at this regulation, you'll see that it actually has a long list of species. There are nearly 90 species on this list. But when the regulation was developed, it used existing AIS regulations. And at the time, Manitoba had an extensive species prohibition list. So about over 70 species on this list are specifically for Manitoba only. And currently, there are no plants on this list. However, this regulation, there is a clause that makes it illegal to introduce a non-Indigenous species in a body of water that is frequented by fish, so likely all of our natural water bodies. But as with the Fishery General Regulation that I talked to a little while ago, you need to be caught in the act, which is typically too late. And again, I'll touch on this a little later. So while the regulation does not have prescriptive rules of conduct within it, like such as a person must clean their equipment when moving from one water body to another, or a person must dispose of contaminated water in a certain fashion, if in doing so, the person introduces a listed or a non-Indigenous species, then that prohibition would be violated. I'd also like to mention that DFO is looking into a process to add species to this list, and it will follow a regulatory process and use risk assessments and will require consultation with the territories and provinces and with the public. So before I get into New Brunswick's role, I'll just mention again that many of the Western provinces have constitutional authority and also take the lead regarding AIS. And so they have dedicated funding, and therefore they have robust programs to tackle AIS using, most of them have mandatory watercraft inspection and decontamination stations. Some of them even have their own sniffer dogs. And most of them have legislation to make it mandatory to pull the plug on watercraft. So as mentioned earlier, New Brunswick doesn't have constitutional authority or take the lead in managing AIS. And unfortunately, the province of New Brunswick does not currently have any dedicated funding or program to fight and manage AIS, although many of us feel like that is a huge priority. That being said, there is some provincial legislation currently in place or in process that target AIS, and one of them is the Department of Environment's EIA regulation under the Clean Environment Act. And this has some triggers for non-Indigenous species, albeit it's on a commercial scale. And some of ours I'll mention later. And I should also note that there are other departments engaged in AIS work, but outside of the New Brunswick Invasive Species Council's steering committee, the departments don't have a coordinated provincial approach. And I should also point out that it's not to say that we can't take the lead role. Nova Scotia has actually done that with a number of freshwater fish species. So more specifically, DNR, as mentioned earlier, there's no specific program, so we are mostly a support role for DFO when and where we can. Some of the things that we've done in the last 2 or 3 years is operating a boat decontamination trailer on loan from DFO at various events. And we've, excuse me, sorry. We've also done, I'm going to pause and take a little sip here. Hang on. Sorry about that. And we've also done some targeted removal with DFO of certain invasive species like goldfish, black crappie, and smallmouth bass. And we are also a member of the National Aquatic Invasive Species Committee, or NAISC. So this is a federal, territorial, provincial committee that is co-chaired by DFO. This committee has a lot of information sharing. And one of the committee's work plans items included updating the 2004 Canadian Action Plan to address the threat of aquatic invasive species, which can be found online. We're still waiting for final approval to release this. It has 3 recommendations. One is to strengthen national leadership and coordination through improved policy and enhanced collaboration. Another, enhance emergency response by providing guidance, supporting early detection and response planning, and empower Canadians by building partnerships, expanding education and capacity, improving information sharing, and increased funding. Another item that recently just got underway is the development of a minimum decontamination standard for watercraft and water-related equipment. And that is through the Canadian Standards Association. There will be a public comment period of this document probably within the next year. So with no funding or program, and because we know that preventative action is the most effective, that's where we tend to focus. We put messages of clean, drain, dry, don't let it loose in our annual angling summary, on the webpage and social media, on the fact sheets for Crown Reserves and in various offices. We've done occasional press releases and even a Crime Stoppers ad. And we put up signage at some of our more popular or stocked water bodies. And we're currently developing SOPs for staff when working out in the field. And we also review Wildlife Trust Fund proposals and recommend those that demonstrate strong, meaningful, and effective work on AIS. So some current and future work that the department is involved with will include work by the Forest Planning and Stewardship branch. The biodiversity section in that branch is working on a biodiversity strategy that will guide activities in the next 10 years, which support biodiversity conservation. Invasive species will be one of the pressures addressed by that strategy. So this group expects to engage stakeholders on draft elements of the strategy in the coming months, and that its implementation will help guide coordinated efforts on invasive species. and they anticipate releasing that strategy later this year. The recreational fisheries section is currently working on an exotic animals regulation regarding personal pet possession, and this will include a fish list. So, as mentioned earlier, with some of the regulation, it is illegal to introduce or release certain species. However, it's hard to catch someone in the act, and by then it's too late. For most cases, once it's in the water, it's hard to get it back. So the recreational fisheries section is in the process of developing a live fish possession regulation like Nova Scotia has. And this would make it illegal to have live fish in your possession, with a few exceptions, of course, like aquarium fish and stuff. The recreational fisheries section is also working on a condition of license regarding AIS. Some of you may recall that in the latter part of the 2024 season, that DFO had put out a management measure that allowed people to retain smallmouth bass in the Miramichi system, and they encouraged anglers to euthanize and report those catches. Now, this was not a mandatory order, but the following year, the province of Nova Scotia issued a mandatory retention order for smallmouth bass and chain pickerel in certain areas of their province. So again, following in Nova Scotia's footsteps, we are looking to do something similar here. So stay tuned for that. Wrapping up here. Preventing the introduction of AIS requires broad participation and collaboration, and everyone plays a major role. So municipal infrastructure is at risk, as I'm sure you know. Every activity or event that is on or near the water is a possible vector for AIS. So with every promotion of an event, I would encourage to have messaging on AIS, like the clean, drain, dry, or the don't let it loose. And for competitive events, it wouldn't just be those fishing tournaments. It would be other things like sailboat racing, the dragon boat races, whatever. Also, tourism development and promotion should keep AIS in mind. More people, the greater the chances of AIS. The new infrastructure or upgrades to marinas and boat launches, or even using the river or a lake, whether it's for firefighting purposes or other things, should keep AIS in mind and have appropriate messaging around that, and maybe SOPs in place. And municipal ponds seem to be a great source for aquarium releases, so those could likely use signage. And I guess my overall takeaway is that public education, it's significantly help with that. And that's about it. I'm not sure that that's really that helpful for you folks. And I don't have, full answers on if regulation will be or when that will be, but I am looking forward, I guess, to that biodiversity strategy that may be coming out in the next year. And other than that, it's just collaboration and promote awareness and consistent messaging. Holly, if you've got anything to add in there.
No, I agree, Krista. So I think the biggest message here is that it's more than fishing. Aquatic invasive species could be transferred through various means, and it's a whole of public responsibility in order to be able to make a difference. And anything that this group of influence can do to support that would be greatly appreciated.
Okay, we're open to questions, I believe, if somebody has questions.
Director Corey has his hand up, Mr. Chair.
Okay, all right, go ahead, Dr. Corey.
Two things, I guess. Can you hear me, first of all?
Yes.
Good. Well, that's a good start. One is on the zebra mussel issue. We've been doing testing on, the lake associations have been doing testing on our three major lakes in the community, Ormocto, Lake George, Macadavic, well, 4, and Harvey. And in Harvey and Ormocto, we're now aware that the level of sodium, or excuse me, I'll have to read it here, that calcium content in Ormocto Lake is not high enough to allow the shells of the zebra mussel to grow. And we've confirmed the same thing to be true in Harvey Lake. Now, that's what the lake associations are telling us. I hope that's the truth. So, and I hope that works. The second is that thing is that we are moving forward with a waterways strategy in the community that will include what we are going to do around invasive species in working with the lake associations. And that'll get underway in the next month or so. Some of the consultation and bringing people to the table to see what we can do about it. Because in the end, it will simply be cooperation and education that will really make the whole thing work. So that's all. Not really a question, but other than the work that the group is doing on the biodiversity piece, it would be nice to link in with them as they are moving forward with that. So we don't create something that won't be consistent with any new legislation.
All righty. Is there anybody else who would like to comment?
Mr. Chair, if you don't mind.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the presentation. I'm going to ask the same question I did when the Invasive Species Council was here. And that is, do you know of, or are you in support of, or can you point me and the city of Fredericton in the right direction so that we can support advocacy on, research solutions to zebra mussels and these kind of invasive species that's more fundamental in nature. And I'll share just as a bit of background. When I first heard the zebra mussel story, it reminded me of malaria. And the only effective tools for that at one time were the same ones that you're advocating for today. So get rid of standing water, try to interrupt the viral cycle by taking care of, where mosquitoes were breeding. Turns out it's hard to get rid of standing water in nature. So the only solutions they had eventually were to go after it with gene editing techniques to actually start, creating solutions that interrupt the viral cycle in other ways. I see that as the only viable solution here. Everything else I see is just a delaying action. So do you know of, or can you point us in the direction of what kind of advocacy required to get that kind of a fundamental approach to solving in the works?
Holly, do you have anything on that? The only thing, so are you referring just to zebra mussels alone or all AIS?
Well, I think one answer would be as good as the other. Gene editing solutions are all based on CRISPR technology, right?
I really don't know if anybody's there yet on zebra mussels. I know I've heard of that there are some, I don't even know if like a chemical or a powder or something that you can put in lakes, but I think with the St. John River that we're too far gone for that, right? That if it was a smaller lake, there could be something, but as far as gene editing, you're way up there ahead of me.
Well, there's 4 universities in the States that are doing it.
Wow. Okay.
And the bill right now, I think is around $40 million spent. So CRISPR takes a long time and a lot of money. But then it does actually do things like, create more viable breeding partners that don't then, go on to full maturity, things like that. Because that's how they've been able to go after malaria, right? By creating super breeders or super breeding males that basically push their competitors out of the environment, and then they don't get the reproductive cycles to complete. But anyway, it's a long question. I'm just curious if the world's changed and it started moving in that direction, because all this other stuff, it's great, but it's a delaying action, right? You can't see these zebra mussel things in the water column. So They're just coming.
If anything, I would think New Brunswick Invasive Species Council would be up on more of that stuff than I am for sure. So yeah, I remember you. I actually watched that that meeting, and I remember you asking about the CRISPR, and I didn't quite understand it then.
Okay, well, I'm not an expert either. I'm just trying to help connect column A with column B so that the people that are experts can get to work on this.
Yep, makes sense.
But anyway, I will keep that struggle going forward. And thank you very much for your presentation today. This is a really serious issue. For anyone watching, you know, I don't mean to trivialize it. And the tools we have available today, we must all use them. So, and thank you for that piece about the ponds. We can get some signs at Odell Park and prevent the goldfish from taking over there. And
yeah, I think there
at the
might
very
be one
least.
at Odell Park already, right? Because New Brunswick Invasive Species Council was there and did a goldfish removal. So
yep.
That one.
Yeah, but we need those signs at
others.
Clarny and all of the others. So
yeah, exactly.
thank you very much for that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thanks.
Okay, Greg. Anybody else want to speak? Yep. John, did you have your hand up?
Mr. Chair, just wondering, Mr. Hawley, I noticed in there was around some of the advertising about calling Crime Stoppers and things like that. Just wondering, are there penalties? Are there a schedule of penalties for people that are doing this right now? I mean, if I take my boat and I go out to Harvey Lake, that's not, not infected with Eurasian milfoil or zebra mussels or something, and I've come out of an area and I failed to do the hot water spray and and the unplugging and everything. Are there any real penalties for it that are out there right now in existence, or at least under PAPA or anything like that, provincially or anything?
Krista?
The only thing I can think of is no, and that's any of the regulations that are out there are for when you go and put that thing in the water. So if you're transporting your boat and well, actually, it wouldn't even be the plants right now because they're not on that list. But if you had a fish in your live well and then you got transported and went to another lake and then put that fish in the water, it's the act of releasing it into the water. But as far as I don't know what the cost, what the fine would be. I don't know if I've ever heard of that in the province. I mean, out west there definitely be fines for that, but here those regulations are really just about once it's released into the water and not just for transporting it or having it in your possession. So unfortunately, not there yet.
Yeah. And it's very complicated anyway. How do you trying to prove that is very difficult unless you have a swab or you have, somebody on site that knows what they're doing to do the testing. Yeah.
Regulation, that would be a good start, right? If somebody's, driving their boat down the road and they don't have that plug pulled out and there's still standing water in the boat, I think that's a good one to start with.
Thank you.
Yeah, I have one question too. I know out in our area here, the smallmouth bass, North Branch River here goes through Fredericton Junction, Tracy, right through to Harvey. And it's so full of smallmouth bass, it is unbelievable. And they're very, they eat anything that comes in their path. So those are things too. And I remember when I was younger, there was no such thing as small bass in our river, perch, trout, Gaspereau, and things like that. But I know there are sports fish when they were there, because I know when I was in Ontario years ago, we used to go to the lakes and fish the smallmouth bass certain seasons. But so what about things like that? Is there any way they're going to be able to control them? Or I see Nova Scotia, I read just a while ago there that they recommend don't put them back in the water if you catch them. Is that the same kind of a regulation we should have here?
Yeah, so I mentioned earlier about that condition of license, and to stay tuned for that. That might be coming out here before you know it, maybe in the season. But as far as the smallmouth bass in your area, I think they're so prolific, they've taken over now. It would be hard to do anything there. but it would be in those waters where they might be just starting, where they've just shown up, and where if you do these, you know, mandatory removals and stuff, then that would hopefully work. But I think in some areas of our province, it's unfortunately just, it's too far, too late.
Yeah, they're massive here. It's just, it's unbelievable.
Yeah, and now, and largemouth now have started, so.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
thank
the
you.
problem is that there's other people that move them here because they like fishing them. So that's what we get into. And then it ruins our brook trout and our salmon populations and stuff like that, our native fish, but it's a tough one.
Okay. Anybody else got a comment or?
The plant on our side, the plant is Eurasian milfoil is the biggest threat that we're concerned about. Now that we're hearing the calcium content isn't sufficient, that's a help, but it really doesn't change anything. We were never the Eurasia or the zebra mussel we didn't see it as a major issue so much because we don't have the pipes and other kinds of issues to deal with that would have caused the same problems. They would have been an irritant, but nothing like the Eurasian milfoil would be, particularly in Lake George, which is a shallow mud bottom lake. It's a real threat there. Threat in Harvey Lake, Ormocto and Macadamic as well, but not quite so much because of the nature of the waterways. And it can be treated, so they say, but the chemicals are not yet, I understand, approved everywhere, and it's very, very expensive. So that's what our waterway strategy will hope to achieve, is just to bring the level of education to the highest possible level that we can, and the vigilance over it all of the time, so that we just simply do our best to avoid it. And then when if we lose that battle, then the strategy is, or what is the strategy for remediation, removal going forward, and who pays for it will be the big question, because our lake associations all charge about a $5 or $10 membership fee a year. So we know who will pay in the end.
All right.
I just kind of want to point out, if I can.
Yes, go ahead.
Now, I want to caution too about, so that calcium levels. I just want to caution of that zebra mussel, that not to think that zebra mussels might not come into those lakes just because the calcium levels are low. I think DFO had mentioned that the lower part of the St. John River also had calcium levels that were low, and they're seeing them there. Now, I'm not sure that they're adults, so maybe it was just the villagers. I can't quite recall right now, but I think it was somewhat alarming to them at the time. So I do just want to caution that. And I'm also, I guess, wondering if, are you working with the New Brunswick Invasive Species Council on, okay, perfect. Just wanted to make sure that all that data was, being collected and stuff like that. So, and I guess too, that if zebra mussels did come into the lake, like Eurasian water milfoil, you can see it, it would be all over the lake, but the zebra mussels would be bad too. Just, maybe there's no piping in the lake, but it's the cottage owners, their watercraft, getting in the motors and getting in all that kind of stuff, and on their docks, and the shells are sharp and stuff like that too. So yeah, they're not good either. But hopefully you're right, and hopefully those with those levels that they can't come into that lake. But
it's that we do have a long-term consistent testing of the water in 3 of our lakes, and the levels, they're saying that becomes limited between 12 and 20 milligrams per mg per liter of calcium, I guess. So but it doesn't, as I said, it doesn't really change anything, because it's the same process to keep the Eurasian milfoil out, except for the drain, and even then it's the same.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
John, it's Bobby. You mentioned earlier about some sort of fines or repercussions for doing. The only thing that we do in our little Peltoma Lake that's close to Ormukto Lake, that we also belong to the New Brunswick Lake Association as well, and we do monitoring and all that stuff, but we kind of do a shame thing. We put the signs up and we just educate by letting people know, do you really know what that does when you take your sea-doo out of the Ormukto River and you bring it to Peltoma Lake, and that kind of education just for the folks that we know that own that stuff, same as kayaks. But that's all we're left to do is educate, but we try to shame people if you can. And you know what, honestly, some people honestly don't even realize, they just knee-jerk reaction. Oh, I can take my kayak and move it, my fishing boat and move it, my sea-doo and move it, and people just don't even they don't even think about it. They're like, oh yeah, that's right. So it's good. The education,
that's a good plan. Yeah,
and we got the big
works.
Yeah, and the big signs, the dry. We've put up signage, and yeah.
I think we're getting there. I think more and more people are starting to know it, but there's still a lot of people that don't. So hopefully in the next few years, everybody understands it.
Yeah, because it is a big deal.
No doubt.
Well, Mr. Chair, if I may, through you, we have a lot of communities that are represented here today.
Sure.
And we certainly have the commission that's, this has been brought up a number of times to us because this is very important in the region. I mean, whether it be through, the sport fishery, whether it be through paddling networks and tourism, whether it be through certainly just even private landowners, enjoying around the lake, whatever that may be, or on our rivers. I mean, some people have invested very heavily in some very beautiful infrastructure. And I remember, Richard, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but Director Corey had at one of the meetings mentioned about, and you had mentioned it as well, Kristen, you think the financial impact, if people can't partake in that enjoyment,
Right.
that potential financial impact. So we have a very strong social media presence through the region. And I'm wondering, is this something that, that we could help with, whether it be through, you talked obviously about, awareness and advocacy. Is there anything else that we can be doing that could help out that within a reasonable, affordable measure? I'll say that. Yes.
The signage is free, John. we found that out.
Oh, okay. Good.
Yep. And it's nice, it's nice steel, they're nice big signs. And yeah, so that's free. I mean, somebody's paying for it, but we got
Also, Facebook's a great place to, communities. Like, I just had ours done on the deer in our area. So many cars killing deer and things like that, and damaging the cars. So I have that posted on our webpage right now. And that's another thing, we can post things like that as well, especially with your boats and canoes and stuff like that. It's another way.
That would be incredibly helpful if you could share information.
I do like John's idea of social media and stuff, because within Hanwell, we I live at Yoho Lake, and we have the same signs that Bobby has, and we remember the lake associations. But really, as far as any education that goes on within the community, it's really only Hanwell that gets all that stuff and has the interest in it. I mean, other people have boats and other people they don't tend to come to Yoho very often because we have no public boat landing, but they do go to the river and they do go, various different places. So it'd be kind of good to get the information out to the whole community if we could.
Our concern is, as said earlier, not so much the fishing derbies and the other activities. It's, as I said in each of the meetings with the lake associations, it's Joe that gets up on Sunday morning and hooks onto his boat and takes it up to his brother-in-law's cottage in northern New Brunswick somewhere and fishes for a couple of days, brings it home and parks it and puts it in the lake on Wednesday.
Yeah.
That's
okay. Anybody else have any questions? We still have some time left here.
I think I'm good.
Are we good?
I am.
Okay. A general discussion with our staff and stuff, and as far as I'm concerned, it was a very good presentation. So if there's nothing else on the agenda, then I think we're ready for an adjournment. Would that be appropriate? At this
Okay.
time, we have put somebody adjourn our meeting for us then.
Well, in that case, I'll move we adjourn.
Okay. The motion on the floor, seconded.
Second, Greg Erickson.
Okay. All in favor? I guess we are adjourned. We don't usually vote on that one. Thank you very much, folks. It was really a very interesting meeting. I appreciate that. So
Yes,
very
thank
much
you.
for taking your time.
Yes, thank you guys very
Indeed.
much. for
Thank
coming.
you.
Thank you.
It's
Thank you very much,
excellent.
everyone.
Thank you.
Well,
Have a
great
thank
day.
you.